Today, you are going to get a memorable front row seat to the incredible Springbok career of Breyton Paulse. Breyton, welcome to Front Row Rugby.
Thanks, Pete. Good to chat to you, man.
Always a pleasure to chat to you. Breyton, we're going to start by looking at the trivia question for today. In 1996, the Springboks played Wales, France, and which other nation on their end-of-year tour? Now, if you know the answer to the question, you can put it in the comment section down below. We'll also find out if Breyton knows the answer, but we'll do that at the end of our conversation. Breyton, just before I actually ask you the first question, I just want to say something so that our viewers know. I have known you since about 2006, if I recall correctly, and you have always been available every time I've asked you for an interview. And also, something else people won't know is that you actually helped me a few years ago when I was completing my master's degree. So it really is a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's a pleasure, Pete. And it's wonderful to see how you also grown as a human being, first of all. And a serious broadcaster these days.
Breyton, let's go to 1999 when you made your test debut for the Springboks against Italy. Talk to me about how you were feeling at that stage.
Yeah, Pete, when you start playing professional rugby, it's every player's dream to obviously put on the green and gold. And unfortunately, it just doesn't happen. A lot of things have to go right or has to happen before you get to that moment. And I tell you, it was a special moment for me the day I put on that Springbok jersey for my first test against Italy in PE, and what a memorable day! It's a week that it went so fast; it was almost like a blur. But that moment, when I went onto that field and sang the national anthem, it was really goosebumps, mixed emotions, and just one of almost like relief because you work so hard to get to that moment, and now obviously you don't want to mess it up, but thank goodness for me against Italy that day. I think Italy wasn't as strong back then. They managed to give me 3 tries on a platter, so I'm very happy for that. But the day went well, and it was a special day. When you make a debut, it is really special. It really is a privilege and not a right. And to score even 3 tries on top of it is even more special. So very fortunate day. A lot of things went right for me on the day. And after the day, I'm forever grateful to have started my Springbok career in such a fashion.
Hey, if you're enjoying this video, why not hit the like button?
Breyton, your inclusion in the side was also significant as a player of colour, especially in those days when there was only really one non-white player in the team, even in the matchday squad. What were your feelings about that at that stage?
Yeah, Pete, without going into too much detail, it was a tough time in South African rugby. Obviously, at the time, players of colour, wasn't really recognised, didn't really get the opportunities that some of them should. And thank goodness today it's a different story. A lot of the players of colour are some of the main guys in the Springbok team currently. And for me as a player who fought the battle to make sure that these players are now giving the opportunity, for me it's really heartwarming to see what has happened. But I can tell you one thing, Pete, from a boy who comes from a farm, my first 2-3 years of travelling with the Springboks was very political, and let me tell you, I'm as far from politics as day is from night, because I just I don't want to get involved in politics. I'm a sportsman and I want to play for my country because I love my country. I love the Springbok badge, but sadly, I had to face a lot of political questions every time journalists had to talk to me overseas. And that was really tough for me because I had no interest. I didn't know what to answer them because I didn't know what was going on. And only now, years later, that I realized, at the time, how crucial that time was, that I had to face the media questions and the uncomfortable questions, if you like. But like I said, fast forward a couple of years on, and we had a place where so many players of colour is there on merit. South African people just love some of those players. And it's so wonderful to see that at least what Rassie has created with his management team and SA Rugby is, if you're good enough, doesn't matter what colour you are, you will get selected for the Springbok team.
So what was your relationship like with Nick Mallett?
Yeah, me and Nick, we came a long way. At the time, Nick was a very stubborn coach. Nick is... he's obviously got his own ideas and ways of doing things, and Nick can be a hard guy sometimes as well. I think at the time we had a professional relationship, because Nick didn't want to pick me at first, so I had to sort of show my talent over and over, or I had to score tries all over and over, so the media can put pressure on Nick to pick me. And at a point, I suppose he had no choice but to pick me, and obviously because of the, like you say, players of color didn't get an opportunity that time, and it's because of that kind of, I think, behavior from some of the coaches at the time. They didn't really believe in the players of color, and unfortunately at the time there was a lot of white coaches in charge of the franchises. So thankfully for me at Stormers in Western Province, I was scoring tries for fun, and I was given opportunity, by the likes of Alan Solomon, who was a wonderful coach, Gert Smal, Karl du Plessis, those guys. They really backed me, but it took some time for Nick before he picked me. So we didn't start off on a wonderful foot, but I think as we got to know each other, and Nick could see my work ethic, and I wanted to be in the team, he finally gave me my chance. So I was very grateful for that. And again, to young players out there, doesn't matter what color you are. Particular coaches won't always like the way you play, and you probably won't suit their game plan. But you gotta also suffer through those bad times, and stay focused on the goal you have as an individual. Because let me tell you, I've seen it all. I've been through it all. Nothing in life comes easy, and especially wanting to put a Springbok jersey over your head, that certainly don't come easy. So my battle, it wasn't always easy, but it's so rewarding for me as a person, first of all, and that I didn't throw in the towel, because at times you think to yourself, geez, what am I doing here? Is this even worth it? And thankfully, I kept my eye on the ball, so to speak, and the rewards was absolutely fantastic.
Breyton, I think it's fair to say that from a fan's point of view, we're all very grateful that you did stick it through, because you ultimately did become a big fan favourite among the Springbok supporters. Let's talk about the 1999 Rugby World Cup. You were selected at fullback to play against Spain, an unusual opponent. And I remember watching that game, and even though the Springboks won by a fairly comfortable margin, it just appeared as if we were almost struggling to beat the Spanish that day, as if they were tough opponents. What was it about them as a smaller nation that was so difficult to combat?
I remember that game really, really well. And, it was one of the games, I think, it was Uruguay first, where, a lot of I would almost say the first team guys would get a chance at the time. And the guys who were on the fringes was always going to get a chance against Spain. I was sort of in between, because I went to the World Cup with some good form. And I actually felt that, at some point I was going to get a chance, but it rarely happened until the third playoff against the All Blacks. But the Spanish game, it was wholesale changes. And as you know, when a team, sort of changed a lot with like 10, 11 players, the rhythm is certainly disturbed. And I think that's what happened in the Spanish game. And I remember that, we really struggled against them. They were really good in frustrating us. They were getting under our skin, and on the day, things didn't want to work for us. I remember, I think I had 2 breaks where I actually made tries for Venus Swanepoel, who was also in the team. And it wasn't for that, we would have had a hard time. They were getting their tails up and made it really difficult for us. So, one of those games that you get in the World Cup where the fringe players need to play. And unfortunately, it doesn't work that way, where you're just going to rock up against, even if it's a minor rugby country, it won't just go your way. Sport is unbelievably interesting, especially live sports and in World Cups, where when coaches do give the fringe players a chance, these guys are frustrated. They want to do well. There's a lot of individual sort of players who want to push their agenda, and unfortunately, if you don't stick to the game plan, it will be a sort of almost like a failed outing. And I think that's what happened in that game. Guys wanted to do too much to show the coach they want to start the next week, and it boomeranged, unfortunately, for us.
You mentioned that third place playoff against the All Blacks. You scored a memorable try in that match to help us beat New Zealand that day. How do you remember that occasion?
Yeah, it was so important for me. I remember we were on our way to Wales from London, and Nick actually gave us off And on our way, while the French were playing the All Blacks, we got a text to say that, geez, like France is beating the All Blacks, So we didn't expect to play the All Blacks in the third place. They were the outright favorites that year. And and Nick said, no, come on, guys, we need to now prepare for this game. It became more important. And obviously, again, a lot of the French players also get a chance in that game. And I was one of them. And I was really grateful for the opportunity. And I remember it was also Henry Hannibal's last game. He was unfortunately injured for the whole of the World Cup. He had a bit of a niggle, and then Yanni de Beer obviously slotted in, and he did so well against England and France. So obviously we wanted to do well, and because there was lots of disappointment after that semi-final against Australia, where we all know the Larkham drop. We remember that game where it was like neck and neck, for so long. And unfortunately, the Aussies got the better of us that day because of a Larkham drop. But in saying that, the third player was an important game for a lot of us. And certainly for me, at the time I was obviously trying to revive my Springbok career because I was mainly a squad player that year. Didn't get lots of opportunities, made my debut, but didn't get lots of opportunities. And now you want to try and cement your place in the Springbok side. And that game for me was vital. I remember Percy Montgomery, 2 drop goals against the All Blacks in that game. And I managed to get, the solo try where I had to use some soccer skill. The bounce of the ball favored me as well. And I think maybe if there was a TMO at that time, I probably wouldn't have been given, but I'll take it today, So, yeah, again, it works for me. And I was almost like, getting new motivation to say that, geez, this is only the beginning. And thankfully, we beat the mighty All Blacks that day.
Let's fast forward to 2000. Mallett is now out of the picture. Harry Viljoen has taken over. The first test is against Argentina in Buenos Aires, and you guys were instructed not to kick the ball that day. You actually scored 2 tries in that match, so I'm guessing that you particularly enjoyed that strategy.
Yeah, 2000 for me was a wonderful, wonderful year. I also became the player of the year that year. In tough competition. So I scored a lot of tries in 2000. And yeah, we went overseas, played against Argentina, and Harry Viljoen, Harry brought new ideas. He had his own new philosophy. And obviously, Harry was way ahead of the game at the time. I need to tell you that. Unfortunately, I think it was the right coach for the wrong time. And, because Harry is such an intelligent man. And also the players wanted to play for him. He had a really good relationship with the players as well. And yeah, he went in with that mindset of we're not going to kick for the whole 80 minutes. And at some point, it became so difficult that Percy Montgomery just said, no, boys, we are so tired of chasing and running that we need to kick now. But again, it was a festive atmosphere. I don't know if you've been to Argentina, but a lot of the games get played in soccer stadia, and that day to me, who's been to soccer games, felt like was like a soccer match. The Argentinian passionate people were there; they were just going ballistic, shouting for their team, and it was a wonderful thing to see. Obviously, we were in the thick of things, on the field, and we had to fight a very spirited Argentina team, and we almost lost that game, but one of the best Springbok days in my life, certainly because it was such a wonderful festival.
I haven't been to Argentina, Breyton, but I have had the privilege, I should say, of experiencing a FIFA World Cup match, quite a few actually, where Argentina were involved, and their fans are just unbelievable. It's, as you say, they truly are magnificent. It's an experience that I would highly recommend to anybody. Breyton, let's fast forward then to 2001. The Springboks lost a match to the All Blacks at Newlands, which I still personally think we should never have lost that match. We drew against the Wallabies, who were the world champions at the time in Perth. We also beat them at Loftus in the Tri-Nations. Even though we weren't necessarily getting the results we needed or wanted, I thought that we were actually doing quite well. Would you agree with that?
No, I agree with you. Again, sometimes you obviously try hard to do stuff, and sometimes it doesn't work out for you. Springbok teams always will be competitive, but it's up to a coach certainly to create a framework where the team functions well with all the talent you have to your disposal. And I think sometimes, unfortunately, coaches do get it wrong. Where they choose maybe the wrong personnel for what they want to do. And it's a fine line between right and wrong. And I'm not saying this coach is wrong or this coach is right, but in the modern world, you need you need coaches and players who almost complement each other. I mean, I take the Stormers team currently at the moment. Dobbo, John Dobson is an absolutely fantastic coach, and apart from his knowledge of the game and his skill level on what he wants to achieve with the team, I think his man management is absolutely fantastic. And especially me, who come through an era where some coaches were just private, they didn't really, communicate to you. I think John Dobson has certainly got it spot on. The way he's taken players like Mallett, Libbok, Viljoen, Zas, Rowan Niel took time to find his feet. Dan du Plessis is playing, best rugby of his career. Ivan Roos was... They didn't want him at the Sharks, and transform those players into world beaters. For me, that's fantastic, and it's not just the coaching; it goes far deeper than that. And that's why I say to make my point is that unfortunately at the time, coaching is so important, and I think we've learned a lot how important coaching is these days. You can go to Rassie Erasmus as well, same kind of person who first sort of coach the human being, and then the rugby player comes. And I think that's so important. I think that's where a lot of coaches unfortunately get it wrong these days.
And then into 2002, Harry Viljoen has been replaced by Rudolf Strauly. And again, we weren't really getting the results. But in the Tri-Nations, I think that it's fair to say that the performances were actually quite encouraging. And I think it culminated with a memorable win over the Wallabies at Ellis Park when Van der Greef scored their try right at the end. How do you remember that match?
Yeah, also a game I can't forget. We were up something like, I think over 20-0 in 20 minutes. And then the Aussies, like they normally do, the Griegans and the Larkhams just came back. And suddenly we found ourselves wanting to try and win a game. And that last 10 minutes of that game was just like ping pong, then they score, then we score. And we really had to work hard for that game. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but Andre Pretorius, he was a number 10. He got injured, at Plecton's run the day before. And then obviously Brent Russell had to stick in to 10. They did an exceptional job, Brent Russell. He was a player, obviously a lot of skill and flair and instinct. And that's what made him so unpredictable. And we scored some wonderful tries, but geez, kudos to the Aussies, for coming back in the manner that they did. It was certainly a dramatic finale. And then Van der Greef, one of my best mates, he's still a good mate of mine today. He just ran this fantastic line when Bola Conradi gave the pass to him, and Bushy, as I call him, he's not known for his kicking, and he showed BMT, and that's what he's got. He's a guy who's got exceptional BMT, and obviously after the Hutte, he put it against the sticks, and geez, we were more relieved than happy, I think, after that game, because you kind of felt that we should have put them away in the first half, and we never did, and it shows you how competitive the professional sport at the highest level can be.
Breyton, the week before that, when we lost to the All Blacks in Durban, there was an unsavoury incident with fan Piet van Zyl running onto the field and tackling the referee, David McHugh. What was your reaction to that?
Yes, again, it happened in front of my eyes. I was standing there and I saw AJ going ballistic, and the AJ had to go with Piet van Zyl, unfortunately. But the referees, man, it's a tough job. It really is a tough job. We've seen even today, every game, there's always talk about the referee, what he's done wrong, depending obviously which side you support. And unfortunately, the referee in that game, he got a few wrong. I remember I scored a try where the referee explained to us, James Dalton made contact. He wasn't even close to the play. And it was a fair try. And at the time, that try was a difference between winning and losing, That's how the All Blacks beat us that day. And again, that game will obviously be remembered for the wrong reasons. But it shows you the fans, how, upbeat they can get when they feel their team is been, sort of put to a disadvantage by a referee. And obviously in rugby, we don't want to see that. But geez, man, there's so many rules these days. There's a lot of grey areas, and I think fans also get frustrated that Piet van Zyl, I'm sure he's still a Bok supporter today, but he just felt at the time it was the right thing to do, and unfortunately, as you know, the rugby culture don't really allow that kind of thing. But it shows you it can boil over when things don't go your way.
And then on the end of year tour in 2002, we suffered some heavy defeats against France, Scotland, and then, of course, England, the 53-3 at Twickenham. What went wrong on that tour?
Yeah, it was under Australia. was really some of the dark moments of my career. Again, Rudolf at the time didn't really communicate a lot with the players. There was chopping and changing every week. There was no consistency, and there was a lot of clicks in the team, unfortunately. That's what I can remember. And obviously, the famous Kamp Staaldraad as well, were part of that. And against England, obviously, Johnny Wilkinson was a really, really good player. Like he was a top quality, one of the best in the world at the time. And we had a plan against Johnny Wilkinson. But unfortunately, the plan sort of, again, boomerang, because Janus Lapaskachny, went late and red card, and then it was ticket for us. And I don't think I need to say more than that, because from there it went pear-shaped. And yeah, it was one of my toughest days as Springbok as well, because we had to defend the whole game, and England at the time was a really tough force to be reckoned with, and they just blew us away.
You mentioned Kamp Staaldraad, Breyton. Everybody that I've spoken to on this show has their own Kamp Staaldraad story. What's yours?
Yeah, it was there was an episode when we had to box each other, and again, not sure what all the thinking behind it was from little Australia and his men, but it was just a horrendous time for us. But we had to box at the time, and I remember that the big boys were going first, and they had to go at each other, and it was almost like surreal, like the guys were looking at each other and we're like, what's going on here? Is this like for real, And then, coming from a farm, being a street fighter, unfortunately, they gave me Derek Hoogaard. And, the problem was that I remember first, like, for instance, Werner Greef and Tinus Dalport went first. And these guys were playing around, because you don't want to hit your mate. And then Rudolf, he sort of chipped in and said, guys, no, we can't box like this. We have to, like, proper boxing, And then from there it was Fulham, and then me and Derek were going at each other, and then unfortunately, I hit him at a spot where he certainly collapsed, and then we got the medics in, and then thankfully after that they had to stop the boxing because it was just horrible. But I mean, that was a moment where I almost got a fright, because I hit him sort of here in his throat, and then he certainly collapsed, and I tell you, I mean, I'm obviously not proud of it, but you had to defend yourself at the time, But it was really a low moment. But thankfully, after that, they stopped all boxing. But there were many moments where just horrendous. It's we don't want to depress people more, because we need a lot of positive vibes out there at the moment. But yeah, no, Kamp Staaldraad was just a horrible time.
Breyton, when I was preparing for this interview and looking at the statistics, it appears as if you only played one test in 2003, and that was against Georgia at the World Cup. Was that because of injury?
Yeah, I had a bit of an injury, but I was good to go at the World Cup. But again, Coach Rudolf Strali, he selected other players. I mean, it's not like I wasn't playing well prior to the World Cup. And again, the team was so in disarray going to the World Cup because of Kamp Staaldraad and a lot of things that happened off the field. I remember Quinton Davids and Theo Cronje. I can't remember what's his name.
Theo Cronje.
Theo Cronje, not Theo. Theo Cronje, yeah, they had an issue. There were many issues, Corne Krieger obviously was our captain at the time, and then there was other clicks as well. So, again, the coach need to create an environment for everybody to feel happy. And I tell you what, the World Cup team, it was certainly a happy team. And we went with that sort of baggage and negative sort of vibe to the World Cup. And it was inevitable that we would never really go to the final, So I remember me and Werner Greef as well, we were very frustrated as well, because we felt that we needed time to get into the team, but Rudolf didn't really give us a chance. And I got a chance against Georgia. I remember Skalkberger's first game. It was a happy day for Skalky. I think he's got to try to. Again, we suffered against Georgia. It's a hard team. It really is a tough team, and we beat them, but again, it was unconvincing. And yeah, like I said, it was a matter of time before we had to bow out.
Now, you mentioned a moment ago that it would be better if we were a little bit more positive, so let's do that. Jake White came in 2004. Talk to me about the change in atmosphere in the Springbok camp.
Yeah, day and night. Jake came in, and it just brought basics to the team. I remember we were in disarray. There was also sort of a very negative mood in the camp. But then, Jake pulled me back. He got guys like Osterrand, Percy Montgomery, some of the old foe. and he tried to create a culture of, not really happiness, but just where players can feel comfortable within the team. And like I said, I take my hat off to Jake for installing a bit of confidence into the team, because it was really hard at the time. Like I said, it was the SA rugby was all over the place, and people didn't want to be involved with the team. And I remember Ireland was the Grand Slam holders; they were coming, and people also didn't give us a chance. They came to South Africa. We were in the camp and with them for about 3 weeks, and at that time, Jake managed to get it right to just get the mindset of the players right. He got in a lot of young players who played well, players in form. But like I said, the atmosphere created was key for our success that year. And we went into the Ireland test knowing that we had a chance to beat them, although people didn't give us a chance. And we we went in and we beat them. And again, it says about the coach, the person, the character that Jake got into the side. And it was just a wonderful time to be involved in a Springbok team where there's happiness and there's you feel valued as a team member, and that to me was key.
How special was it to win the Tri Nations that year?
Yeah, it was good. I don't think as a goals we set, we didn't think in our wildest dreams we were going to win the Tri Nations. But like I said, it's up to the coach to make sure that players perform to the highest that they can be, the highest level. And Jake managed to get that right, and he knew it was going to be a tough ask, but for some reason, the players just gelled, the players shared in the vision of the coach, and the rest is history. It was a beautiful year for us, and it was good to put the Springbok badge again, up against the best in the world, and for us, it was key.
And then moving forward into 2006, you began to feature less in the Springbok team under Jake White. And then in 2007, for the away leg of the Tri Nations, you were part of that setup. But that was effectively a B team at the time. Did you know that at that stage it was unlikely that you'd be selected for the World Cup?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, young players come through as well, and there was tough competition as well. And I knew that it was going to be a hard task, because prior to that as well, I went to France for 2 years, and so I was almost like out of the reckoning already. But I was grateful that I could still hang on for as long as I could. But it was. I remember 2006 was a tough year for Jake as well. The result didn't go his way really, and unfortunately for him, he had to almost like he had to battle on his own a lot of issues that was happening, but thankfully SA Rugby kept him on board, and obviously the next year he went and win the World Cup with that squad. But it's not easy being a Springbok coach, let me tell you. And thankfully for me, like I said, I could be involved for as long as I could, and you just got to be grateful for those little moments.
Breyton, you were a try-scoring machine for the Springboks during your career. Is there one that stands out particularly as a favourite? No,
not really, Pete. It'll be it'll be unfair to sort of then like pull out one, because I think everyone is special, and I think it's up to the fans to decide which one for them is the best, because you work hard to score a try for the Springboks, because it's a highly competitive environment when you play for the Springboks every week, and to get a try every time, it's a combination of hard work of the forwards. And obviously, a combination of when a move get together and you can just finish at their times. So I'm very grateful for all my tries that I've scored in a Springbok jersey, and it's all I can say, because at the end of the day, it's a team effort. You guys work hard to give you good ball as a winger. And I remember initially as well, it was very conservative game plans for the Springboks. Only later on became a bit better. So that's why, these days, guys like Makazole and Cheslin and Kirtley, they score tries for fun, because with their defensive pattern and when they play expensive against some teams, they do score a lot of tries. So it's good to see that too, that the Boks now have one or two options, that they can throw out to the opponent. But yeah, just in all, no, it's unfair to single out one try.
Who was your toughest opponent?
Yeah, there were plenty. I remember initially it was a guy called Joe Roff, for Australia, the Wallabies. He's got such a rugby brain. He was such an intelligent player, and the angles that he ran always was really, really tough. And then obviously, played against the All Black guys, Jonah Lomu, the late great Jonah Lomu. I was very fortunate to play him many a time. And he was just a freak of nature, So I would say those two players made it really, really difficult for me, as a smaller guy. But, it's wonderful mutual respect over the field. And that's the wonderful thing about the rugby culture.
Breyton, I know that these stories are not necessarily for public consumption, but is there a particularly funny moment from your time with the Springboks that you can share with us?
Yeah, there's Pete. Now you put me on the spot, man. I can recall one day Quinton Davids. Yeah, we had a horror time with the Springboks, and at some point the coach just said, "Guys, what's wrong? Why? What am I doing wrong? What can we do?" And then Quinton Davids, he's not a guy who spoke a lot in the team, and he just stood up. And he just said, "Well, coach, I can say one thing from where I come from. It's not always easy. Quentin comes from the Cape Flats, and he said, but on a very serious manner, he said, when two gunmen meet, one must die." And the whole team just started laughing, and he was so serious. And I tell you what, that was almost like an icebreaker in the team meeting that day. And needless to say, that next week, we went and won. But that was quite funny at the time, and it was so needed from a guy like Quinton Davids, a character who doesn't speak a lot, and just tell us the story, So it's one story I can tell you guys and share with you.
That's a great line. I think I'm going to try and use that myself in my... Breyton, just in terms of these days, when you watch modern rugby, is there a certain player that stands out for you as a favourite?
Yeah, without a doubt, Jason Colby. He reminds me a lot about myself. He's he's got just a phenomenal strike rate as a try scoring machine, and he scores tries for fun. He's just got a great feel for the game, and he's with a small frame, he's so physical. So Cheslin's got it all. He's obviously worked a lot on his ball in air competing as well. On the wing, he wins a lot of battles against tall men. And his sidestep and speed, he used to his ability, and just his rugby intelligence for me is wonderful. I just love the player and the way he goes about his business on and off the field, and it's just exceptional. It gives a lot of smaller guys hope as well out there, and for me, may the legacy of the small men continue.
And we've seen you on SuperSport obviously quite a lot in the last few years. What else are you up to these days?
Yeah, Pete, there's a lot of events that I do, a lot of motivational talking that I do, at schools. And for me, charity work is important. And I think with the SA Rugby Legends in South Africa, we do a lot of charity work. And especially in South Africa these days where there's a lot of challenges, we as ex-sportsmen as well, we try and help where we can. I mean, you can't change the whole world or the whole country, but I think, just my motto as well, my plea to people out there where they can make a difference, please help, because, every little bit helps and it means a lot to so many people. And that's what I'm busy with here.
All right, Breyton, sounds good to me. Let's finish with the trivia question again from earlier. In 1996, the Springboks played Wales, France, and which other nation on their end-of-year tour? Do you know the answer, Breyton?
Pete, I could be wrong. It's either Scotland or Ireland. I'm going to go for Scotland.
All right. As it turns out, we started in Argentina that year and then we went to Europe.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, cool. You got me there.
Breyton, it really was an absolute pleasure having you on Front Row Rugby today. Again, from a very personal point of view, it's always lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope that we can have you on again in the future.
Thank you, Pete, and stay well, man. Thank you.
Last time on Front Row Rugby, I had former Tri-Nations and World Cup champion Albert van den Berg on the show. You can go and watch that video. It's appearing on your screen right now. Next time, I'll have Franco Smith here. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that video, why not tackle the like button? You can also subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any content from Front Row Rugby. See you next time.